They thought she was invisible. Just another waitress in a cheap uniform, wiping crumbs off the table of the most dangerous man in New York. James Sterling, a billionaire whose whisper could crash the stock market, sat there insulting his business partners in a language he thought no one else understood. He thought he was the smartest person in the room. He was wrong. When the waitress finally spoke, she didn't just take his order. She took his pride, silenced the entire room, and started a chain reaction that would threaten her life. This is the story of Sophia Bennett, and why you should never assume the quiet ones aren't listening. The Obsidian Room, located on the 44th floor of a skyscraper overlooking Central Park, didn't smell like food. It smelled of money. It was a scent composed of aged mahogany, cold air conditioning, expensive perfume, and the faint metallic tang of fear. For Sophia Bennett, that fear was a physical weight she carried on her tray every night. At 28, Sophia was overqualified and underpaid, a cliché that stung every time she checked her bank balance. Her student loans from her unfinished master's degree in international relations were a noose that tightened a little more every month. She had been a prodigy once, the daughter of Anton Bennett, a mid-level diplomat stationed in Beirut and Amman. She had grown up speaking 3 languages before she could ride a bicycle. But life has a way of crumbling. Her father's sudden death, the scandal that stripped his pension, and her mother's subsequent illness had dragged Sophia from the halls of academia to the service entrance of New York's most pretentious restaurant. "Bennett!" The sharp hiss came from the shadows near the kitchen pass. Sophia froze, clutching a tray of crystal flutes. Gavin Price, the maitre d', loomed over her. Gavin was a man who wore suits that cost more than Sophia's annual rent, yet he always smelled faintly of desperation and mints. "Table 4 is arriving in 10 minutes, Gavin snapped, checking his Swiss watch. "Do you know who is sitting at table 4? "James Sterling," Sophia said quietly, keeping her eyes lowered. Everyone knew. "Mr. Sterling," Gavin corrected, his voice dripping with disdain. "And his associates from the Al-Fayed Group. This is a merger worth $4 billion. If you drop a fork, if you pour the water 1 degree too warm, if you so much as breathe too loudly, I will not fire you, Sophia. I will ensure you never work in this city again. Do we understand each other?" "Yes, Chef. Yes, Gavin," Sophia corrected herself, her knuckles white on the tray. "Good. You are to be invisible. You are furniture that serves wine. Nothing more." Sophia nodded and hurried on to the floor. Invisible. It was what she was best at. For 2 years, she had perfected the art of blending into the beige wallpaper. She had learned to shut off her brain, to ignore the conversations of hedge fund managers, boasting about insider trading and politicians discussing their mistresses. She was a ghost in an apron. But tonight felt different. The air pressure in the room had dropped. The other staff members were jittery. James Sterling wasn't just a billionaire, he was a shark. He had made his fortune in aggressive, hostile takeovers, dismantling companies and selling them for parts. He was known for being ruthless, cold, and utterly lacking in empathy. And he was bringing the Saudis here to close the deal of the decade. Sophia checked her station. The silverware was polished to a mirror finish. The napkins were folded into geometric perfection. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her trembling hands. She needed this shift. Her mother's medication had gone up in price again, and the rent on their small apartment in Queens was 3 days overdue. She couldn't afford a mistake. The elevator doors at the end of the hall slid open with a soft chime. The room went silent. James Sterling walked in. He was younger than he looked in the magazines, perhaps late 30s, with sharp, angular features and eyes that looked like shattered ice. He wore a tuxedo that fit him like a second skin. Flanking him were 3 men in impeccable business suits, clearly his legal team, and opposite them, 2 older men in traditional thobes and gutras, the representatives of the Al-Fayed family. Gavin rushed forward, bowing so low it looked painful. "Mr. Sterling, Mr. Al-Fayed, welcome to the Obsidian Room. We have prepared the private alcove, as requested." Sterling didn't even look at Gavin. He just walked past him, his gaze sweeping the room like a predator scanning for weakness. His eyes landed briefly on Sophia, then passed through her, as if she were made of glass. "Good," she thought. "Stay invisible." They sat. The tension at the table was immediate. This wasn't a dinner. It was a battlefield. "Water," Sterling commanded, not looking up from the menu. Sophia moved instantly. She approached the table from the left, pouring the sparkling water with practiced elegance. As she poured, she listened. It was a bad habit, one she couldn't break. "The valuation is incorrect," one of the Saudi men, Mr. Yassin, said in perfect, accented English. "We agreed on a baseline of 3.5. "That was before the market shifted yesterday," Sterling replied, his voice smooth and dangerous. "The price is 4. Take it or leave it." Sophia finished pouring and stepped back into the shadows. Her heart was pounding. They were arguing over $500 million while she worried about a $10 subway pass. "We will discuss this," Yassin said, his face tight. "Discuss all you want," Sterling said, picking up his wine list. "But I don't like to wait." Sophia watched from her station, her back against the wall. She watched their body language. Sterling was arrogant, leaning back, exposing his chest, a sign of total dominance. The investors were closed off, defensive. But then, Sterling did something strange. He leaned toward his own lawyer, a nervous man named David, and whispered something. Then he looked directly at Mr. Yassin and smiled, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He began to speak. But he didn't speak in English. He switched to Arabic. Sophia's ears pricked up. It had been years since she had heard the language spoken so fluently in person. Her father had insisted they speak it at the dinner table in Amman. It was the language of her childhood, the language of her happiest memories before the fall. Sterling's Arabic was good, surprisingly good. It was the Gulf dialect, Khaliji, polished and precise, though his accent carried the unmistakable harshness of an American tongue. "Tell them the wine is excellent," Sterling said in Arabic to Yassin. Yassin looked surprised, then pleased. He nodded and replied in Arabic. "You speak our tongue, Mr. Sterling. This is a sign of respect." "I learn what is necessary to win," Sterling replied in Arabic. The table chuckled. The tension seemed to dissipate. Gavin, standing near the kitchen door, looked relieved. He couldn't understand a word, but he saw the smiles. But Sophia heard the tone. There was something off. She approached the table to take the order. "I will have the Wagyu," Sterling said in English to her, not making eye contact. "Rare. And bring us the 82 Latour, quickly." "Yes, sir." As she turned to leave, Sterling leaned in toward his lawyer again. He switched back to Arabic, assuming that Yassin and his associate were distracted by the menus, and certainly assuming the blonde waitress in the cheap uniform was deaf to his words. He spoke rapidly, his voice low. "Look at these fools," Sterling said in Arabic. "They think I am courting them. They do not know the contracts are already drafted to liquidate their assets within 6 months." Sophia froze. She stopped mid-step, her back to the table. The tray in her hand rattled ever so slightly. Liquidate. He wasn't merging with them. He was gutting them. Yassin didn't hear it. He was laughing at something his associate said. But Sophia heard it, clear as a bell. She walked to the computer terminal to punch in the order. Her hands were shaking uncontrollably now. This wasn't just business. This was fraud. Or at least, it was a level of deception that made her stomach turn. These men were about to sign away their family legacy because they thought Sterling was a man of honor who respected their culture. "What is taking so long, Bennett?" Gavin whispered, appearing at her elbow like a bad omen. "Get the wine." He's lying to them," Sophia whispered, her voice barely audible. "What?" Gavin scowled. "Nothing. I'll get the wine." She went to the cellar. The bottle of Chateau Latour, 1982, cost $4,000. It was heavy in her hand. She dusted it off, checking the cork. As she walked back to the table, she felt a strange sensation. A moral itch. She knew she should stay silent. Just pour the wine, Sophia. Pay the rent. Buy Mom's medicine. She returned to the table. The mood had shifted. Sterling was now toasting them. "To partnership," Sterling said in English. "To the future," Yasin replied. Sterling took a sip, then lowered his glass. He looked at Yasin with a predatory grin and switched to Arabic again, speaking to his lawyer but loud enough for the table to hear, confident that the complexity of his sentence structure would fly over the heads of the non-native speakers. Or perhaps he just didn't care anymore. "I will strip the meat from their bones and feed it to the dogs before the ink is dry," Sterling said in Arabic. It was a brutal, poetic, and disgusting phrase. Yasin paused. He frowned slightly. He had heard the words, but Sterling had spoken them with a smile, and Yasin's English was better than his hearing. He looked confused, trying to pass the rapid-fire dialect. "I'm sorry?" Yasin asked in English. "I missed that." Sterling laughed. "I said, I will ensure this company grows and feeds us all for decades." It was a blatant lie. A mockery. Sophia stood there holding the $4,000 bottle of wine. She looked at Yasin, an old man who reminded her of her father's friends in Jordan. She looked at Sterling, a man who had everything and wanted more. Something inside Sophia Bennett snapped. It wasn't a loud snap. It was the quiet click of a decision being made. She stepped forward to pour the wine into Sterling's glass. "Your wine, sir," she said. Sterling ignored her. He was busy grinning at his lawyer. Sophia poured the red liquid. It swirled in the glass, dark as blood. She finished pouring, twisted the bottle to catch the drip, and placed it on the table. She should have walked away. Instead, she looked directly at James Sterling. For the first time, she looked him in the eye. The restaurant was buzzing with the low hum of conversation, but around table 4, the air seemed to vanish. Sophia stood tall. Her feet hurt, her apron was stained with a tiny drop of oil, and she had $12 in her bank account. But in this moment, she was the daughter of Anton Bennett. She spoke. Her voice was calm, steady, and loud enough to be heard by the entire table. "The wolf may wear a smile, Mr. Sterling," Sophia said, her Arabic flawless, her accent carrying the refined, educated lilt of the Levantine aristocracy. "But his teeth are visible to those who know where to look. Is it honorable to feed a guest poison and call it a feast?" The silence that followed was absolute. It rippled outward from the table. The clinking of silverware stopped. The lawyer dropped his pen. James Sterling's face went through a complex transformation. First confusion, then shock, and finally, a cold, terrifying fury. He slowly turned his head to look at the waitress he had dismissed as furniture. Mr. Yasin's eyes went wide. He looked from Sophia to Sterling, his mind racing to translate what she had just said, and what it implied about what Sterling had said earlier. "What did you say?" Sterling whispered, in English this time. Sophia didn't retreat. She switched to English, her voice ringing clear. "I said, sir, that your Arabic is excellent, but your metaphors are careless. You just told your lawyer you intend to strip the meat from their bones. I believe Mr. Yassin deserves to know the translation." Gavin Price was sprinting across the dining room. He looked like a man watching a bomb go off. Mr. Yassin stood up slowly. He looked at Sterling with a mixture of horror and realization. "Is this true, James? You said, meat from the bones?" Sterling stood up, knocking his chair back. His face was red. "She's a waitress. She doesn't know what she's hearing. It's a colloquialism. A business term." "It was very specific," Sophia said, her hands clasped behind her back to hide the shaking. "And the earlier comment about liquidation? Was that a colloquialism too?" Yassin's face hardened into stone. He signaled to his associate. They gathered their papers. "We are leaving," Yassin said. "There will be no deal." "Sit down," Sterling barked, losing his composure. "You're going to listen to a servant over me?" "This servant," Yassin said, looking at Sophia with newfound respect, "has more honor in her tongue than you have in your entire empire. Goodbye, Mr. Sterling." The Saudi delegation walked out. The deal, the $4 billion merger, evaporated in seconds. Sterling stood there, breathing heavily. His hands were clenched into fists. He looked at the empty chairs, then he turned his gaze slowly, agonizingly, back to Sophia. Gavin arrived at the table, panting. "Mr. Sterling, I am so sorry, I don't know what—" "Get her out of my sight," Sterling said. His voice was terrifyingly quiet. "And Gavin?" "Yes, sir. If I ever see her face in this city again, I will buy this building just to evict you." Gavin grabbed Sophia's arm with a grip that bruised. He dragged her toward the kitchen. The entire restaurant was watching. Some patrons looked shocked, others amused, but Sophia kept her head high. She had just destroyed a fortune. As soon as the kitchen door swung shut, Gavin shoved her toward the lockers. "Are you insane?" he screamed, his face purple. "Do you have any idea what you just did? You just cost that man billions! You just cost this restaurant our biggest client!" "He was cheating them," Sophia said, her voice trembling now that the adrenaline was fading. "It is not your job to be the moral police." Gavin spat. "You are a waitress. You pour liquid into glass. That is it. Get your things. Get out. You're fired. And don't bother asking for your tips. You're lucky I don't call the police for corporate espionage." Sophia opened her locker. Her hands were shaking so hard she couldn't work the combination. She finally got it open, grabbed her coat and her bag. She stripped off her apron and threw it in the bin. She walked out the back door into the alleyway. The cold New York air hit her like a slap. It was raining. Of course it was raining. She leaned against the brick wall and slid down until she hit the wet pavement. She buried her face in her hands. What have I done? The righteous anger was gone. The reality was crashing in. No job, no reference, no money for Mum's pills. She had played the hero, and now she was going to be homeless. She sat there for 10 minutes, crying silently in the rain, the sounds of the city muffling her sobs. Then, headlights swept across the alley. A sleek, black SUV pulled up to the curb, blocking the exit. The window rolled down. Sophia wiped her eyes, terrified. Had Sterling sent someone to hurt her? It wasn't unheard of. The back door opened. A man stepped out holding a large black umbrella. He walked over to where Sophia was sitting in the puddle. He held the umbrella over her, shielding her from the rain. It wasn't a thug. It wasn't the police. It was the lawyer, David. The one Sterling had been whispering to. He looked down at her, his expression unreadable. "Mr. Sterling would like a word," David said. Sophia laughed, a harsh, brittle sound. "Tell him to go to hell. He's already fired me." "He doesn't want to fire you, Miss Bennet," David said. He extended a hand to help her up. "He wants to hire you." Sophia stared at the hand. "What?" "He says anyone brave enough to cost him $4 billion is too dangerous to leave unemployed. Please, get in the car." Sophia hesitated. The rain was soaking through her thin coat, chilling her to the bone. The open door of the SUV was a gaping maw, a portal into a world she had just declared war on. "I'm not getting in that car," she said, her voice shaking but firm. "He'll probably have me killed." David, the lawyer, sighed. He looked tired. "Miss Bennet, James Sterling doesn't kill people. He buys them. And right now he's very interested in your price. Besides, do you really want to go back to your apartment and explain to your mother why you can't pay for her next round of dialysis?" The words hit Sophia like a physical blow. The cold in her chest wasn't from the rain anymore. How do you know about that?" "We are thorough," David said, gesturing to the dry leather interior. "Please, just a conversation. Then I will drive you home, and I will personally write you a check for $5,000 just for your time. That is 6 months of dialysis co-pays, Sophia." $5,000 for a conversation. Sophia looked at the dark alley, the trash cans overflowing with soggy cardboard, and then at the warm, amber light spilling from the car. She had pride, yes, but pride didn't keep her mother alive. She climbed in. The door thudded shut, sealing out the noise of the city. The interior smelled of sandalwood and expensive scotch. James Sterling was sitting on the other side of the wide cabin, tapping away on a tablet. He didn't look up as she entered. He didn't look like a man who had just lost a $4 billion deal. He looked bored. The car began to move, gliding over the potholes of Manhattan as if they didn't exist. "You have a good accent," Sterling said, finally looking up. His eyes were unreadable. "Levantine. Jordanian influence? Maybe a bit of Lebanese phrasing?" Sophia sat stiffly, water dripping from her hair onto the pristine floor mat. "My father was a diplomat in Amman. We lived there for 12 years. "Anton Bennett," Sterling said, nodding. "I remember reading his obituary. A good man. Terrible with money, but a good man." "Don't talk about him," Sophia snapped. "Why am I here? You fired me. You threatened to destroy me." "I threatened Gavin," Sterling corrected. "Gavin is a moron. You, however, are a problem. And I solve problems." He pressed a button, and a partition slid up, separating them from the driver. "You cost me a great deal of money tonight, Sophia." "You were defrauding them," she shot back. "I couldn't stand by and watch." Sterling chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. He poured a glass of amber liquid from a crystal decanter. "Defrauding? No. I was engaging in aggressive negotiation. The Al Fayed Group has been trying to undercut my tech holdings in Singapore for 3 years. Tonight was about leverage. I was going to strip their assets. Yes. But they knew the risks. They play the game, too. You just flipped the board over." He took a sip. "However, I admire the audacity. Most people in your position are terrified of me. You stood up in a room full of sharks and cut my throat with a metaphor. That takes capacity." "Capacity for what?" "For the truth," Sterling said. He leaned forward, his face suddenly serious. "Everyone around me lies, Sophia. David lies to protect me. My board lies to please me. My competitors lie to destroy me. I live in a hall of mirrors. Tonight, you were the only real thing in that room. You heard something, and you acted on it, regardless of the consequence." The car turned sharply, entering the underground garage of a building Sophia recognized from postcards, the Sterling Tower. "I have a meeting in 3 days," Sterling said. In Dubai. It is with a man named Richard Cole. Do you know him? Sophia frowned. The arms dealer. I thought he was in prison. He was released. Private contracting. He has something I need. A prototype for a cybersecurity grid. If I get it, Sterling Corp becomes untouchable. If I don't, or if he sells it to the Chinese, I lose 30% of my market share overnight. The stakes are considerably higher than tonight's dinner. So? Take your lawyers. Take David. Richard Cole doesn't trust lawyers, Sterling said, and he speaks a very specific dialect of business. He operates in the grey zones. He will try to cheat me. He will try to lie. I need someone who is invisible, someone who listens to the things that aren't being said, someone who speaks Arabic, French, and, according to your file, Farsi. Sophia's heart skipped a beat. You want me to be a spy? I want you to be a cultural attaché, Sterling said, as the car stopped. You will wear the clothes I buy you. You will stand by my side. You will translate. But mostly, you will listen. You will tell me if he is lying. You will tell me what his staff is whispering. You will be my ears. And if I refuse? Then David gives you $5,000, and you go back to Queens. You find a new job waiting tables at a diner in Jersey, and you hope the price of dialysis doesn't go up again. Sterling opened the door. He stepped out, then looked back at her. The job pays $50,000 for 1 week of work, plus expenses, and I will cover your mother's medical bills for the next 5 years. Full coverage. Best specialists in the city. Sophia sat there, paralyzed. It was a deal with the devil. She knew it. This man was dangerous. He was amoral. But $50,000? 5 years of medical care? It was freedom. It was her mother's life. She looked at Sterling's outstretched hand. It wasn't a hand of friendship. It was a contract. 1 week, Sophia whispered. 1 week, Sterling confirmed. Welcome to the team, Ms. Bennett. Try not to destroy this deal, or I really will leave you in the desert. The transformation took 12 hours. Sophia was whisked from the underground garage to a penthouse suite that occupied the entire top floor. She wasn't allowed to go home. David had a courier collect her passport and pack a bag from her apartment. Don't worry, he had said. We will burn the clothes, but bring the personal items. A team of stylists descended upon her like a swarm of locusts. They cut her hair, dyeing the mousy blonde into a sharp, icy platinum bob that made her look severe and expensive. They manicured her nails, scrubbed her skin, and fitted her into tailored suits by Armani and evening gowns by Givenchy. When Sophia looked in the mirror, she didn't recognize herself. The tired waitress with the oil stains was gone. Staring back was a woman who looked like she could buy the restaurant she used to work in. Don't get used to it, Sterling said, walking into the room as she adjusted a diamond earring. He was wearing a casual cashmere sweater, looking deceptively relaxed. It's a costume, nothing more. You treat people like props, Sophia said, turning to face him. She felt armored in the expensive silk. I treat people like assets, he corrected. We leave in an hour. Read this. He tossed a thick leather folder onto the table. The dossier on Richard Cole. Memorize it. His likes, his dislikes, his vices. He has a weakness for gambling and ancient history. He thinks he's an intellectual. Play to that. The flight to Dubai was on Sterling's private Boeing 737. It was less like a plane and more like a flying apartment. Sophia spent the 14 hours studying the dossier. Richard Cole was a shark of a different breed. Where Sterling was cold and corporate, Cole was flamboyant and chaotic. He had made his money running guns in the 90s before rebranding as a defense contractor. He's paranoid, Sophia noted, closing the file as they began their descent over the Persian Gulf. He records everything. He has 3 bodyguards who never leave him. Yes, Sterling said, looking out the window at the glittering skyline of Dubai rising from the desert dust. That's why you are important. He won't suspect you. He's a misogynist. He will see a pretty blonde accessory. He won't see the mind of a diplomat's daughter. They landed at a private airstrip. The heat hit them the moment the doors opened, a dry, suffocating furnace. A convoy of white Range Rovers was waiting. They were driven to the Burj Al Arab, the sail-shaped hotel on the water. Sophia had seen it on TV. Being inside was like walking into a kaleidoscope of gold leaf and vibrant colors. "We meet him tonight," Sterling said, as they rode the elevator to the royal suite. "Dinner at the underwater restaurant, Al Mahara. Keep your mouth shut unless spoken to. Listen to the waiters. Listen to Cole's men. If you hear anything at all, you touch your left earring. That is the signal. And if I touch it, then I abort the negotiation and we get the hell out of there." Sophia went to her room, a suite larger than her entire apartment building, and stood on the balcony. The city lights shimmered below, a mirage of wealth built on sand. She felt a knot of dread in her stomach. She was playing a game she didn't understand, with rules that kept changing. At 8 p.m., she descended with Sterling. She wore a midnight blue evening gown that clung to her frame, her new hair sharp and sleek. Sterling wore a tuxedo. He offered her his arm. "Showtime," he whispered. "Remember, you are Sophia Vance, my executive assistant. You are bored, you are shallow, and you are devoted to me." "I hate you," she whispered back, taking his arm. "Good. Use that." They entered the restaurant. It was breathtaking. A floor-to-ceiling aquarium formed the centerpiece, sharks and rays gliding silently past the diners. Richard Cole was waiting at the best table, right against the glass. He was a massive man, tanned to the color of old leather, with silver hair and a loud, booming laugh. He stood up as they approached, flanked by 2 men who looked like military contractors, hard eyes, earpieces, bulges under their jackets. "James!" Cole boomed, ignoring the hush of the restaurant. "You look terrible. Too much work, not enough sun." "Richard," Sterling said, shaking his hand. "Always a pleasure." Cole's eyes immediately slid to Sophia. He raked his gaze over her in a way that made her skin crawl. "And who is this lovely creature? Did you finally upgrade from David?" "This is Sophia," Sterling said coolly. "My assistant." "Charmed, love," Cole said, taking her hand and kissing it. His breath smelled of cigars. Sit. I've ordered everything." The dinner began. It was a masterclass in tension. Cole dominated the conversation, telling loud stories about his time in Angola and Colombia, while Sterling sipped water and steered the conversation toward the cybersecurity prototype. Sophia sat silently, picking at her lobster. She played the part perfectly, smiling vaguely, looking at her phone occasionally, acting disinterested. But her ears were straining. She listened to the waiters. They were speaking Tagalog and English, nothing suspicious. She listened to Cole. He was bragging, but he was vague about the prototype. "It's a game changer, James. Quantum encryption. Unbreakable." But then, the main course arrived. A new server brought a large platter of lamb. He was young, nervous. As he placed the platter down, one of Cole's bodyguards, a man with a scar running through his eyebrow, leaned in and whispered something to the server. It was a harsh, guttural whisper. Sophia froze. It wasn't Arabic. It wasn't English. It was Farsi. But it was street Farsi, heavily accented with a dialect she recognized from the refugee camps her father used to visit near the border. "The package is not ready," the bodyguard whispered. "We have to stall him until midnight." The server replied, barely moving his lips, also in Farsi. "The police are watching the warehouse." The bodyguard hissed, "Just pour the wine. If he tries to leave, we initiate Plan B in the elevator." Sophia's blood ran cold. Plan B in the elevator. She looked at Sterling. He was listening to Cole ramble about a blockchain. He had no idea. She looked at Cole. He was smiling, slicing his steak with a serrated knife. He wasn't selling a prototype. He was stalling. And if Sterling tried to leave without buying, or perhaps if he tried to leave at all, something bad was going to happen in the elevator. She needed to signal him. She reached up to touch her left earring, but Cole's eyes snapped to her. He was sharper than he looked. "Is something wrong, my dear?" Cole asked, his voice dropping an octave. "You look pale. Is the jewelry heavy?" Sophia froze. Her hand was halfway to her ear. If she touched it now, Cole would know it was a signal. He was paranoid, Sterling had said. Paranoid men notice signals. Sophia stammered. She had to improvise. She dropped her hand to her neck. "I just feel a bit faint. The heat today was intense." "Ah," Cole smiled, but his eyes remained cold. "Perhaps you need some air. My man, Cale, can escort you to the terrace." The bodyguard with the scar stepped forward. Sophia's heart hammered against her ribs. If she left with him, she was neutralized. If she stayed, they were trapped. She looked at Sterling. He was watching her, a flicker of concern, or perhaps calculation, in his eyes. He realized she had caught something, but he couldn't ask. She had to tell him. But she couldn't speak English, and Cole likely knew French or basic Arabic. She had to use a language Cole wouldn't know, a language of secrets. She looked at Sterling and prayed he was as smart as he claimed to be. She picked up her wine glass and, seemingly by accident, knocked it over. The red wine flooded the white tablecloth, spilling onto Sterling's lap. "Oh my God!" Sophia cried out, jumping up. "I am so clumsy. I am so sorry." She grabbed a napkin and began dabbing at Sterling's wet trousers. "Get off!" Sterling snapped, pushing her hand away. "You idiot!" As she leaned in, her face inches from his ear, hidden by the chaos of the waiters rushing over, she whispered. Not in Arabic. Not in Farsi. She whispered in the one language she knew a man like Cole, an arms dealer who operated in Africa and the Middle East, would never bother to learn. A dead language her father had taught her for fun because he loved history. Latin. "Insidiae," she whispered rapidly. "Elevator periculum. Bellum. Nunc. It's a trap. Elevator danger. War." Now. Sterling shoved her back, standing up. His face was a mask of fury, but his eyes were wide with understanding. He had understood. The boy who went to prep school, the billionaire who studied the classics. "You are useless," Sterling shouted at her, playing the part. "Get out of my sight! Go back to the car!" He turned to Cole. "Richard, I apologize. My assistant is incompetent. I need to go to the restroom to clean this up. Give me 5 minutes." Cole looked at the spilled wine, then at the terrified blonde, then at the angry billionaire. It was a perfect scene of domestic incompetence. He bought it. "Of course, James." Cole laughed, relaxing. "Take your time. We have all night." Sterling grabbed Sophia's arm. "You're coming with me. You can clean this up properly." He dragged her not toward the exit, and not toward the elevators. He dragged her toward the kitchen doors. As soon as they swung through the double doors into the clattering noise of the kitchen, Sterling released her. His face transformed instantly from anger to laser-focused intensity. "Latin?" he hissed. "You speak Latin?" "My dad was a nerd," she panted. "They're stalling you. The prototype isn't ready, or it doesn't exist." The bodyguard said, "Plan B in the elevator. They're going to hit us when we leave." "The elevator is the only way out of the underwater level," Sterling said, scanning the kitchen. "Except the service lift." "Mr. Sterling!" a chef shouted. "You cannot be here." Sterling ignored him. He grabbed a steak knife from a prep table. "Call David. Tell him to bring the car to the service bay. Now." Sophia fumbled for the burner phone in her purse. "Too late," a voice said from behind them. The kitchen door swung open again. The bodyguard with the scar, Kyle, stood there. He wasn't smiling. He held a silenced pistol at his side. "Mr. Cole insists you finish dessert," Kyle said. Sophia stepped back, hitting the stainless steel counter. They were cornered, a billionaire, a waitress, and a steak knife, against a professional killer. Sterling looked at Sophia. For the first time, she saw fear in the ice-blue eyes. But then he did something unexpected. He stepped in front of her. "Run!" Sterling said, and then he charged the gunman. James Sterling was a man who played squash at the Yale Club and boxed with a private trainer twice a week. He was fit, but he was not a killer. Kyle was. As Sterling lunged, Kyle didn't panic. He simply stepped to the side, pivoting with the grace of a dancer, and brought the butt of his pistol down hard on Sterling's shoulder. There was a sickening crunch. Sterling collapsed, the steak knife clattering across the tile floor. He groaned, clutching his shoulder, his face white with pain. "Pathetic," Kyle sneered, raising the gun to finish the job. He had forgotten one thing. He was standing in a commercial kitchen, and while this was an alien landscape to a billionaire and a mercenary, to Sophia Bennett, it was home. Sophia didn't think. Her body took over, the muscle memory of 5 years spent dodging hot pans, slippery floors, and angry chefs. She saw Kyle step back to aim. His heel was resting on a rubber fatigue mat that was slightly curled at the edge. She saw the prep station to her right. A large, stainless steel container of clarified butter was sitting near the warmer. It was liquid. It was hot. Sophia grabbed the container with a towel and swung it with both hands. "Hey!" she screamed. Kyle turned his head. The gallon of hot, yellow liquid hit him full in the face. He screamed, a sound that cut through the kitchen noise, and fired the gun blindly. The bullet ricocheted off the stainless steel hood of the stove with a deafening clang. Kyle dropped the gun, clawing at his eyes. "Move!" Sophia yelled, grabbing Sterling by his good arm. The kitchen staff was in chaos, diving under tables. Sophia knew the layout of these places instinctively. Dish pit, walk-in fridge, delivery exit. "This way!" She dragged Sterling past the stunned pastry chef, weaving through the maze of prep tables. She kicked a rolling cart of dirty dishes into the path behind them to block anyone following. They burst through the heavy grey doors marked "Delivery Only." They were in the loading bay. The humid, salty air of the Persian Gulf hit them instantly. It was night, but the dock was lit by harsh sodium floodlights. "My shoulder is dislocated," Sterling gritted out, his teeth clenched. He was sweating profusely. "Walk fast," Sophia commanded. She was scanning the area. "David is at the main entrance. We're at the back. We need to get around." "Stop!" The shout came from the kitchen door. Kyle stumbled out, his face red and blistering, one eye swollen shut. He had retrieved his gun. "Get behind the dumpster." Sophia shoved Sterling behind a massive metal bin smelling of rotting seafood. A shot rang out, sparking against the concrete inches from Sophia's foot. They were pinned. Kyle was moving forward, blind rage making him sloppy but dangerous. "Sophia," Sterling whispered. He reached into his tuxedo jacket with his good hand and pulled out a phone. Not his sleek smartphone. The burner phone. "Call David. Tell him to ram the gate." "He's too far away," Sophia cried, looking around for a weapon. There was nothing but garbage. Kyle was 20 feet away. "I'm going to kill you slowly, bitch." Sophia looked at Sterling. "Do you trust me?" I just watched you blind a man with butter. Yes. Give me your wallet. What? Give me your damn wallet. Sterling handed it over. It was a slim piece of alligator leather. Sophia pulled out the black Centurion card, the card that had no limit, the card made of titanium. She stood up. "Mr. Cale!" she shouted. Kyle stopped, aiming the gun at her chest. "Final words?" "You're a contractor, right?" Sophia shouted, her voice echoing off the concrete walls. "You work for money. Cole pays you what? 200,000 a year? Maybe 3. She held up the black card. It caught the light. "This is a Centurion Black. James Sterling is worth $12 billion. If you drop that gun right now, he will transfer $5 million into any account you want." "Tonight?" Kyle hesitated. The gun barrel wavered. $5 million. It was more than he would make in a lifetime of wet work. "He's lying," Kyle rasped. "He's a businessman," Sophia said, her voice steady, channeling every ounce of authority she had learned from watching Sterling. "He doesn't care about revenge. He cares about the deal. Killing us gets you nothing but a manhunt. Letting us go gets you an island." She took a step forward. $5 million. Or you kill us, and Cole probably has you liquidated next week to tie up loose ends. You know how he operates. That landed. Kyle knew Cole. The mercenary lowered the gun slightly. "Show me the transfer." "Sophia," Sterling hissed from the ground, "I don't have the banking app on the burner phone." "Shut up," she whispered back. Then, louder, "He needs his phone. You have to let him stand up." Kyle nodded slowly. Slowly. Sophia reached down to help Sterling. As he stood, the sound of squealing tires tore through the air. A black SUV smashed through the chain-link gate of the loading dock, sending sparks flying. It was David. He was driving like a maniac. The car drifted sideways, putting its armored body between Cale and Sophia. "Get in!" David screamed, the passenger door flying open. Kyle raised his gun again, realizing he'd been played, but David floored the gas. The SUV clipped Kyle, sending him spinning into a pile of cardboard boxes, and roared out of the loading bay. Sophia slammed the door shut, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. "Go, David, go!" Sterling shouted. They sped onto the highway, merging into the blinding stream of Dubai traffic. Sterling slumped back against the leather seat, clutching his shoulder. He looked at Sophia. He started to laugh. It was a manic, pain-filled laugh. "You tried to bribe him," Sterling wheezed. "With my credit card." "I was buying time," Sophia said, her hands shaking as the adrenaline crash hit her. "I figured everyone has a price. Isn't that your motto?" Sterling stopped laughing. He looked at her with a gaze she hadn't seen before. It wasn't the look of a boss looking at an employee. It was the look of a man looking at an equal. "You are terrifying, Miss Bennett," he said softly. "We need to go to the airport," David said from the front, his eyes on the rearview mirror. "Cole will have the city locked down in an hour." "No," Sophia said. Both men looked at her. "No?" Sterling asked. "Sophia, they have guns. We have a dislocated shoulder and a credit card." "You wanted the prototype," Sophia said. "The cybersecurity grid. You said if you don't get it, you lose 30% of your market share." "I'd rather lose the market share than my life," Sterling said. "We can get both," Sophia said. Her mind was racing, connecting the dots of the whispered Farsi conversation she had heard in the restaurant. The waiter said, "The police are watching the warehouse," and Cale said, "The package is not ready." She looked at Sterling. "Cole doesn't have the prototype at the hotel. It's at a warehouse, and the police are already suspicious of it. If we leave now, Cole sells it to the Chinese tomorrow. But if we tip off the police, if we tell them exactly which warehouse—" "We don't know which warehouse," David said. I do, Sophia said. I have a photographic memory for sounds. The waiter mentioned a location, Alquoz, behind the cement factory. Sterling stared at her. The pain in his shoulder seemed to be forgotten. The shark was waking up. "David," Sterling said, his voice cold and hard, "hand me the phone, and get the legal team in New York on the line. We are going to make a call to the Dubai Chief of Police." The raid made international news. At 3 a.m., the Dubai Special Forces breached a warehouse in the Alquoz industrial district. They found Richard Cole attempting to load servers containing classified quantum encryption data onto a cargo plane bound for Shanghai. They also found illegal munitions, enough to put Cole away for life. James Sterling and Sophia Bennett watched it unfold from the VIP lounge of the airport, safe behind bulletproof glass and diplomatic immunity. Sterling's shoulder was in a sling. He was watching the CNN broadcast on the wall. The ticker tape at the bottom read, "Defense contractor arrested in Dubai. Sterling Corp stock surges." He turned off the TV. The silence in the lounge was heavy. Sophia was standing by the window, watching the planes take off. She was wearing a fresh change of clothes David had procured, jeans and a simple white blouse. The Givenchy gown was in a trash can somewhere. "The board called," Sterling said, breaking the silence. "The stock is up 12%. We didn't just save the market share. We absorbed Cole's clients." "That's good," Sophia said quietly. "Does that mean I get a bonus?" Sterling walked over to her. He didn't smile. He looked tired, and for the first time, human. "You get more than a bonus," he said. "I fired Gavin." Sophia turned around, surprised. "What?" "I bought the building where the Obsidian Room is located," Sterling said simply. "I fired Gavin this morning. I told you I would." "That seems petty," Sophia said, though a small smile tugged at her lips. "I am a petty man," Sterling admitted. "But I also pay my debts. The $50,000 has been wired to your account. Your mother's medical care is paid for in perpetuity. There is a trust fund established in her name." Sophia let out a breath she felt like she'd been holding for a week. "Thank you. Truly. I can go back to school now." "You could," Sterling said. He looked out the window. "Or you could come to London." Sophia frowned. "London?" "I'm opening a new division," Sterling said. "International strategy and risk assessment. It needs a director. Someone who listens to what isn't being said. Someone who speaks languages I don't. Someone who has the nerve to throw hot butter at a hitman." "I'm a waitress, James," Sophia said. It was the first time she had used his first name. "You were a waitress," he corrected. "Now? You are the only person in the world I trust to watch my back." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. It didn't say waitress. It said Sophia Bennett, Director of Global Affairs, Sterling Corp. "The salary is $400,000 a year," Sterling said, "plus stock options." Sophia looked at the card. She thought about the tray of heavy crystal glasses. She thought about the smell of old wine and Gavin's insults. She thought about the student loans and the fear that woke her up at 3 a.m. Then she looked at James Sterling, the wolf, the shark, the man who had stood in front of a gun for her. She took the card. "I'll need an advance," she said. "I have a lot of tuition to pay back." Sterling smiled, a real smile this time. "Welcome to the table, Sophia." 6 months later. The Obsidian Room had a new manager, and the atmosphere was different, lighter. Table 4 was occupied. James Sterling sat at his usual spot. But this time he wasn't alone with lawyers or sycophants. He was sitting across from a woman with a sharp platinum bob and a tailored navy suit that screamed power. A new waitress approached the table. She was young, nervous, her hands shaking slightly as she held the wine list. She looked terrified of the billionaire. "Well, water, sir," the young waitress stammered. Sterling looked up. He opened his mouth to bark an order, to demand perfection, to be the man he used to be. Sophia cleared her throat. She looked at James, one eyebrow raised. James paused. He looked at the terrified waitress. He saw Sophia in her. He saw the invisible people who made the world turn. He smiled at the girl. "Yes, please," James said gently. "And take your time. We aren't in a rush." The waitress looked shocked, then relieved. She poured the water and scurried away. "You've gone soft," Sophia teased, picking up her menu. "I'm just listening," James said, raising his glass to her. "To the things that aren't being said." Sophia clinked her glass against his. The sound rang out, clear and sweet, silencing the room not with fear, but with the presence of two people who owned it completely. The waitress watched them from the shadows, wondering what they were talking about, never guessing that the woman in the power suit used to stand exactly where she was standing now. And Sophia Bennett, the invisible woman who had found her voice, took a sip of the 82 Latour, and finally, truly, enjoyed the taste. And that is the story of Sophia Bennett. She walked into that restaurant as a servant, and she walked out as a savior. It proves that power isn't about the suit you wear or the money in your bank account. It's about the knowledge you hold and the courage to use it when the stakes are highest. James Sterling thought he could buy the world, but he learned that loyalty is the one thing that can't be bought. It has to be earned. What would you have done in Sophia's shoes? Would you have stayed silent and poured the wine? Or would you have spoken up and risked everything? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, please smash that like button and subscribe for more tales of underdogs taking over the world. See you in the next video.